Hello, comparative religions, and welcome to the first of two lessons on the Roman religion. Okay, now we're going to set this up kind of like we did with the Greeks. In the first lesson, we're going to talk about the background to Rome, the history of the Roman Empire, and we're going to introduce the religion and the major gods and goddesses. In the second lesson, we're going to talk about the heroes of Roman mythology and then talk about the advent of Judaism and Christianity in Rome. Okay. Now, as you listen to both lessons, you're going to be responsible for taking your own notes. I will try to give you pointers as to what I want you to take down. Be sure that you look over the information in this presentation as well as the presentations on the Greek religion and the presentations on the Egyptian religion, because later this week we will have our third quiz, which will be all about polytheism, all of polytheistic societies, okay? Even stretching as far back as Mesopotamia, okay? So just keep that in mind. Be sure you're reviewing this material in preparation for that little quiz at the end of the week. All right, so let's start with the background to Rome. First off, okay, and I do want you to get everything on this slide down. Around 800 BC, okay, or BCE, the ancestors of the Romans, the Latins, move into Italy. All right, they are going to settle in small villages scattered over 7 hills. In fact, Rome is going to be the empire of 7 hills. Okay, you will often hear Rome found, or Rome itself referred to as the city of 7 hills. Okay, this is where it comes from, these small villages scattered over these 7 hills on the Italian peninsula. Over time, those villages grow together and they form the city of Rome. Okay, now supposedly Rome was founded by 2 brothers, Romulus and Remus. They were the sons of a Latin woman and the war god Mars. All right, we'll talk more about him later. So, because of that, Romans see themselves as having divine origin. So, in some respects, it's kind of like Pharaoh in Egypt. Remember, Pharaoh is the son of a god and is seen as a god himself. In that respects, the Romans kind of have the same thing. They see themselves as having divine origin from these 2 brothers who are themselves the son of the god Mars. Okay, now they would stop short of saying they are gods themselves, but they definitely believe they have divine origin. Now, over time, okay, so the Latins are sharing the Roman peninsula with the Greeks and the Etruscans. Okay, so and I want you to get down this slide too. The Latins share the peninsula with the Greeks and the Etruscans. Like we sort of see in Greek culture, because the Greeks would often adapt and adopt customs from the territories that they conquered, the Romans kind of do the same thing. They adapt the Greek Etruscan alphabet. Okay, so they're sharing this land with these other 2 groups. They're going to begin to adopt their customs and their cultures and adapt them in with their own. They also learn about arch construction from the Etruscans, okay? And the Romans are famous for their architecture, including the arches, especially arches that are part of aqueducts later on in the Roman Empire. This all comes from the Etruscans. They adapt Etruscan engineering techniques to drain marshy land. Again, okay, these aqueducts that are going to be used to help channel water to different parts of the empire, they're going to learn from the Etruscans how to drain that marshy land and how to channel that water away from that marshy land. And of course, they adapt not only Etruscan gods and goddesses, but also Greek gods and goddesses and merge them into their own Roman deities. Okay, so basically, they're going to pick up their polytheism from the Greeks and from the Etruscans. Okay, now let's talk about that religion. All right, let's talk about that religion. And again, I want you to get down the next slide as well. Around 509, okay, so 800 the Latins show up on Italy. Around 509, the Romans begin to drive the Etruscans off of the peninsula. And it's the beginning of the Roman state, which will last 500 years. Over that period of time, all right, they are a polytheistic society. They begin with the Etruscans, but then they're also going to adapt their religion from the Greeks as well. They believe in numerous gods and goddesses, and these gods and goddesses are going to mirror the Greeks. In fact, that's what we're going to look at here in just a second, are the different, or some of the different Roman gods and goddesses, and we're going to compare and contrast what they are in Greece. Just like the Greeks, the gods and goddesses are going to look human. They're going to display the same human emotion, and they're going to play a big role in Roman life. So the Roman calendar is full of feasts and other celebrations to honor these gods and goddesses. Just like in Greece, you want the gods and goddesses to bestow their favor on the different Roman city-states and the Roman Empire itself. So, just like in Greece, we're going to see daily observances to these gods and goddesses in hopes that they will smile favorably on either the city-state or Rome, or the Roman Empire itself. And there are going to be numerous temples scattered throughout the Roman cities dedicated to these different gods and goddesses. And just like we saw in Greece, those temples are going to have big statues to the gods and goddesses, and there will be daily observances to honor these deities. Okay. Now, I want you to get on the next slide as well. People are going to participate in religious festivals on a daily basis. Not only does it show devotion to the gods and goddesses, it also shows loyalty to the empire. And one of the things that we talked about earlier in the semester, what does organized religion provide for society? It gives them a sense of community. And that's exactly what we see happen in Rome. The people are going to be united in their religious practices and in participating in these festivals. And that is going to create this sense of community among the Roman people themselves. As I mentioned just a second ago, there are going to be dozens of temples throughout the different cities. These temples are going to house statues of the gods and goddesses. And there are going to be daily rituals that take place both outside the temple and inside the temple as well to honor these gods and goddesses. And again, it's not only going to show devotion to those deities, but it's going to show devotion to the empire and help foster this sense of community. In some respects, when monotheism shows up in Roman society, part of the reason monotheism is, and we'll get to this in the second lesson, monotheism has a very, very complex role in Roman society. Because on the one hand, kind of like we see in Greece, Rome is going to control this vast amount of territory. It is beneficial if they allow people who practice monotheism to continue to practice monotheism. That way, those people are happy and they're loyal to the empire. At the same time, monotheism whittles away at the sense of community, because if you're monotheistic, your devotion is to your God first, okay, or to God first, not to the empire. So in some sense, monotheism threatens this loyalty and this sense of community that exists in the polytheistic society in Rome. But we'll discuss that more in the second lesson. Now, let's talk about these key Roman gods and goddesses. And I'll be honest with you, there are a bunch. I have tried to focus on the main ones, okay? You probably want to get these down. That way you can compare them to the Greek gods and goddesses that we talked about before break, okay? The king of the gods in Rome is Jupiter. He rules the sky and all other gods. He is identified by lightning and a thunderbolt. So, in a lot of respects, he's like Zeus from Greece. Okay? Zeus was king of the gods. Zeus was in charge of storms and lightning and thunder and things like that. He was ruler of the other gods. He was in the sky. That's the same thing we see with Jupiter. Jupiter is married to Juno. She's queen of the gods. She's also sister and wife of Jupiter. She's like Hera in Greece. Okay, remember Hera was both married to Zeus. She was Zeus's wife and Zeus's sister. Juno is the goddess of marriage and childbirth. Hera was the goddess of marriage and the home. Juno is the mother of Vulcan and Mars. Okay? Now, who are Vulcan and Mars? Mars is the god of war. We talked about that just a second ago. Also, Mars is an agricultural guardian. And you have festivals held in March and October, which coincides with the changes of the season. Okay? March, you're getting ready to plant. Okay? October, you're getting ready to harvest. And Mars has a very, very famous love affair with Venus. And we'll talk about Venus here in just a second. Vulcan is the god of fire and volcano. His symbol is the blacksmith's hammer. Vulcan is kind of like Hephaestus in Greece. Remember, Hephaestus was the forager of the gods, the blacksmith of the gods. Okay, Vulcan is the Roman counterpart. All right. Mars, of course, being the god of war. Now, Jupiter has two brothers. One of those brothers is Neptune. Okay. The other is Pluto. Pluto is god of the underworld. Okay. Neptune is god of fresh water, the sea, earthquake, storms, and horses. Okay. So Neptune is kind of like Poseidon. All right. Poseidon in Greece was the god of the oceans. Neptune is the same thing here in Rome. Neptune is the brother of Jupiter. Poseidon was the brother of Zeus. Okay. So part of the reason that we're going through these, once again, is notice they are very, very human. Okay. They maintain human characteristics. They maintain human form. But also notice the big similarities between Rome and Greece. Okay. Now, Venus is the goddess of love, beauty, sex, prosperity, and fertility. She is considered the mother of the Roman people through Aeneas, and we'll talk about Aeneas in the next lesson. Julius Caesar claimed her as an ancestor. Okay. Venus is the Roman equivalent to Aphrodite, who was the goddess of love and things like that in Greece. Okay. Saturn, I'm just going to mention him. Saturn has a very, very long and complex history. Because of this long and complex history, he's the god of capital. He's the god of wealth, agriculture, liberation, and time. Okay. The god that I'm very, very concerned that you get down is Mercury. Okay. Mercury helps guide souls to the underworld. He is the god of eloquence and messages. He's also the god of communication, among other things. And that's another thing that you're going to see, like we saw in Greece. The gods and goddesses are in charge of a bunch of other things. Okay. Mercury, I think, is equivalent to Hermes in Greece. Okay. Hermes was the messenger god. Well, Mercury is the god of messages and communication. So in that respect, he's a little bit like Hermes in ancient Greece. Okay. Now, just like in Greece, Rome is going to have some earthly heroes that interact with the gods, okay? And we're going to start with that in our next lesson. And then, like I said, we're going to talk about the expansion of Roman religion and the introduction of monotheism as well. So we'll stop there for lesson 1 right here. And then we'll pick up with lesson 2 with the heroes and then the expansion into monotheism.